I've recently been able to finish Book 5 of Dreamfall Chapters. It's a game for which I may try and do a review. For the people who don't understand the process, if it doesn't have review in the title, it's not a review. But most of all, it's a game I've been waiting for, at least 10 years. More than likely, a lot more than 10 years. Because this is the third game in a series that began in 1999 with The Longest Journey. Now, I may have a personal problem regarding objectivity when it comes to discussing this game, because I believe it is absolutely brilliant. Your mileage may vary a lot, but to me, this game is the epitome of what an adventure game can be, what a classical, point-and-click, puzzle-based adventure game can be. One that blends an interesting world with interesting characters, a great story, and puzzles that, well, they may keep you guessing for a long time. I finished this game before the internet was a thing, so that puzzle with the rubber duck, it was a bit kind of problematic, I would say. It did take me a while to figure it out. There was also another puzzle later on in an underwater situation where, because I was one of the idiots that decided, I'm gonna get Windows ME because it's probably better than Windows 19, it wasn't. It sure as hell wasn't. Windows ME, if you don't know, while it did have some few positive aspects, they added some features there that would later become standard for all Windows versions. I believe the auto-updater was part of this one. It also removed what made Windows 98 actually good, the DOS prompt, but back to the matter at hand. The Longest Journey is an adventure game made by Funcom and directed and written by a man named Ragnar Turnquist, who is one of the best writers in the video games industry. Like, I'd say he's almost up there with Amy Hennig. But Ragnar does have a few quirks, let's call them. He loves mysteries, and not in the sense that he likes making mysteries that you solve. No, he makes mysteries that remain mysteries. And that's something that one of the characters in the game, and The Longest Journey, actually tells you, a guy by the name of Cortez. It went something like this: mystery, senorita, is important because knowing everything, to know all what it is boring. There is no magic in that. Trying to sound Spanish, I sounded even more like a vampire, if that's possible. And that obsession with keeping things mysterious sort of... Well, I'll get more into this when I try to do a review of Book 5, but maybe it backfired a tiny, bitsy bit. But when mystery was applied to the original, to The Longest Journey, it worked, because you got the sense that, I'm not gonna learn everything there is in this game, but I will learn most of what's needed. Like, you don't learn in this game exactly who the narrator is. You don't learn what happened to the main character after it ended, but you do learn right off the bat some very important things. If I'm not mistaken, I tried to do a show about subtlety a while ago, and maybe I glanced over The Longest Journey because this game, it's all a big mystery. Who is April Ryan? Why can she do the things she does? Why is she destined to do what she's about to do? All throughout the game, you will search so hard for answers, but truly, you actually search for the question, because the answer is given to you in the first few minutes. This is one aspect I truly loved about this game. It started with the answer, and then you had to find out the question. You had to understand the context for that answer, one that for the most time I didn't actually understand. And you probably won't understand it fully until not actually Book 5. Book 2 or 3 of Dreamfall Chapters sort of gives you an idea. about what that answer actually implies in the grand scheme of things, but that's going a bit too much into certain details. The Longest Journey is a very good adventure game. It's set in a dual world of magic and science, Arcadia and Stark. Long ago there used to be one single world, but well, people abused both science and magic to the point where they risked tearing a hole in the fabric of time and space and blowing up everything. So something had to be done. The world needed to be torn asunder, broken in two parts, one with magic and one with technology. And never if they should meet again when the human race would be sufficiently evolved to understand to not mess with crap like that, there would be a reckoning, there would be an upheaval, there would be a disaster. And to that it would seem, for me as a player that had finished The Longest Journey, the series was building up to. That's what would be next. That's what would continue the story, the main event, if you will, the War of the Balance. One in which April Ryan, one of the greatest video game characters ever made, would play a pivotal role. The series didn't go into that direction. It went into the Dreamer cycle, which added Zoe and sort of a side plot, actually main plot, where the side characters are the main characters of the old game, and it's another story in the same universe with heavy implications to it, but it's not April Ryan's story, though she does play an important role in it. It's, how shall I put this? Ragnar Turnquist raidened The Longest Journey. To raiden is a verb meaning they replace the main character with someone else that isn't Solid Snake or the main character of that series. Now, I'm not saying Zoe is as bad as Raiden, but April was somewhat more fleshed out and in most aspects a better, more complex, more interesting character. She also had the fullest adventure, one that spanned both worlds, Arcadia and Stark, and explored them to the fullest. Later games would just focus on one world and leave the other one as more of an afterthought. This one had them both. In this game you would go to space. In this game you would fight a warlock, a wizard, necromancer, in his floating castle, and you would beat him with a calculator. Still not 100% sure what was up with Roper Clax and that calculator. Maybe he got stuck in it because it was technology and he was literal magic, and their collision was a bit of an indicator to what kind of doom would happen should the worlds collide again. And the worlds do begin to collide again, to merge. That's the premise of the game. The worlds are merging before their time, and April has to put a stop to it or people will die. A lot of people. And worse than that, the people causing the worlds to merge plan to take over the universe, which is kind of bad because they're assholes. The detail that went into The Longest Journey is breathtaking. You have a cast of dozens of characters, each of them with very distinct personalities, each of them so well made, to which you can talk for minutes and minutes, and you have a crap ton of dialogue in this game and a crap ton of descriptions. And again, you also have puzzles, actual good puzzles, interesting puzzles that require some out of the box, well no, not out of the box, out of the loony bin, because it escaped from a box in the loony bin thinking. Like the puzzle with the duck I mentioned before. You find the rubber duck, you then use that rubber duck to okay, I've honestly forgotten what the rubber duck was used for. No, you had to use it on a clamp, and that clamp on a high tension wire, no, a high tension rail, and you had to put a patch on the duck because it deflated too fast if they didn't have the patch on it to stop it deflating. But it does need to deflate in order to close the clamp. It's been a decade since I went through that bit of the game, so bear with me. I haven't managed to replay it entirely since I finished book 5 and up until now. I probably should have, but this is a long game. Like, if you know what you have to do, if you know exactly what you've got to do, if you skip over all the dialogue that's not critical, if you don't read any of the books that you find throughout the game that give you more details, actually important details that show up in book 5 and so on. If you do all that, you will get maybe about 10 to 12 hours of gameplay. But if you just go through it for the first time, you don't know the puzzles, you talk to everyone, you admire everything you can, because the art is quite beautiful, you will get about, at least 20 hours worth of adventure. Now I ask you, how many adventure games are actually 20 hours today and have puzzles? Well, yeah, Dreamfall Chapters is quite long. It took me a while to finish it. Not sure if it was 20 hours, but it was definitely over 10 hours long. Now, this is a more traditional adventure game, so while you do have choices in it, they don't matter all that much and don't show up that often, whereas in modern adventure games with choices, they show up often and still don't matter all that much. What I'm getting at is that most of the choices you do in Dreamfall Chapters are pointless. They don't really serve a purpose in the grand scheme of things. Apart from the drink you choose at the Rooster and Kitten, that one just changes the ending completely. But back to this game, back to The Longest Journey. It was made using a mix of 3D models for the characters and pre-rendered backgrounds for, well, the background, the scenery. It's a bit Resident Evil-ish, if I may say so. It has that same style. And it hasn't aged that well, mostly because the characters were very low res. This is a game made to run on 640 by 480 if I'm not mistaken. Also, you should disable the default fonts if you want to play it. The game does have its own fonts, but they disable clear type if you use them on your PC, and some of them, especially the ones in the diary, are unreadable. Like, you cannot read the text. And it's important to read that diary because it gives you a lot more detail about the background of April Ryan, about why she's there, about how she left her family, adoptive family, because of an abusing father. Though I will say this about the graphics, if you turn up anti-aliasing in the driver to the max, it looks actually good. I mean, the characters become a bit blurrier, but they look better than ever. Like, I don't remember April Ryan being this non-jaggedy edged. Well, yeah, I kinda do because I played the game first on a 14-inch CRT monitor that didn't really do high resolutions, and well, the game doesn't do them either. But even if you don't use any anti-aliasing setting, then the graphics are still good because the scenery, it has a style to it, a very distinct style. The future, well, our future in Stark, in Planet Earth, the year 2200, it's your almost typical-ish dystopic, corporation-led, gigantic sprawling city thingamajig where we've explored stars, we've explored other planets, we have colonies, mining colonies, to which you can sign your life into slavery if you want to. It's all filled with the giant buildings and flying cars, which by the way are the safest way to travel. The odds of being hit by a falling car are very slim. Now they will fall quite often, but the chance of being hit by one, very low. The game has a sense of humor about this, about how just horrible its world actually is, about how corrupt and twisted the ideals of the future became in Stark. Meanwhile, in Arcadia, it's a fantasy world with fantastic creatures, magical entities, wizards, and it's just as corrupted and debauched and just downright mean-spirited as Stark is. Like, there are lawyers in this world that are literal vampires. You don't sell yourself into slavery for a mining corporation to go off-world, no. You're taken into slavery to mine things in mines by an invading horde of Tyrant. No way, the Tyrant may just actually outright kill you. And then the Azadi may, the Azadi don't show up in this game. I don't believe they're actually mentioned in this game. But they do show up in Dreamfall as Nazis. Now, apart from the graphics, I would also like to mention the music, which is superb. It is a fantastic score that will send chills through your body in some scenes. I mean, it starts from the main menu. It has that whimsical yet dark and foreboding tone to it. And fun fact, everything you see in the menu is another bit of subtlety. It's what you'll actually be doing in the game. Like those drawings you see in the main menu, they were made by April Ryan when she was still a kid. And you'll understand why that's important in about book 3 of Dreamfall chapters. Yeah, you'll understand why that was important, like really understand. Truly. Well, not really. You'll get an idea of why that was important because the game doesn't outright tell you, but you get a sense of why it was important 17 goddamn years after the game was released. Like, can you understand how much time a person had to wait between when this game showed up and the sequel that did more of an effort to try to explain it came out? 17 years. And yet people complain they have to wait 2 or 3 years for a sequel to their favorite game to come out. This one took 17 years, and well, to be fair, it's not a direct sequel to it. It's another one of those side sequels. Bits of it, important bits of it, are related to The Longest Journey, but most of it is still about the Dreamer saga, cycle, whatever you want to call it. I'll probably get that one too soon. Oh, Dreamfall, you had such promise, but you did deliver not well on it at all. But The Longest Journey did. The Longest Journey I went into without any prior knowledge, and it amazed me. It just blew me away. This, I would even dare say, is a better adventure game than Broken Sword. For the simple fact that it just does so many things. It takes you to so many places. It has so many characters. It has such an interesting story that relates to the character. Whereas in Broken Sword, George Stobart went through all that trouble mostly because he wanted to know who almost killed him while trying to assassinate someone else. Now, most people won't do that. Most people, when they live through a bombing, will go to a hospital and hide under their beds for the next 10 years. Now, that does say something about George, and that makes him a very good character, but April was different. April didn't go into this Longest Journey because she wanted to. She went in because she was curious at first, hesitant, and then realized she actually didn't have a choice. Not just because of destiny, but because there was no one else who could go on that journey, who could do what she was about to do. You see the growth of a character done magnificently. And in Dreamfall, you get to see her grow up even more, and well, there's a bit in Dreamfall where you have to sneak past a few guards, and if you don't, you actually have the option to knock them out. Or at least I believed it was to knock them out, but no, in Dreamfall, April, who is a lovely girl, a very charming young lady in The Longest Journey. In Dreamfall, she outright snaps a man's neck in a half a second, as if she had done this so many times it was routine to her. That was one of the darkest character shifts I have ever seen. And it was still done well because, like I've said, Ragnar Turnquist knows how to write his characters. And the progression of April Ryan from the starving artist, who can't get a night's sleep because of all the heat and nightmares, who can't complete her project, to ruthless killer and leader of a resistance against Nazis, is well made. And also, I'd be a bit of an idiot to not talk about April's sidekick in this game, Crow, named after a cartoon character named Crowboy, who shows up a lot in Dreamfall chapters. Crow is, how shall I put this? You know all those smart mouth, quick talking, joking side characters you see in a lot of games? Yeah, imagine if all those characters were actually well written and well acted. That would be Crow. He accompanies April through the game, well, through some of the game. He's actually used in puzzles because it was a game that had puzzles and good ones. And he is funny as hell. Now, if you're very interested in playing this game, unless you've tuned out my voice because I've been talking for 20 minutes about something It's not fully represented by the video in the background because I couldn't get footage from all the game. If you still want to play it, and I highly recommend that you do, it's a fantastic adventure game. It is one of the best adventure games, classical adventure games that had puzzles. It doesn't have that much pixel hunting in it. It is good, it is well made. You will find it on GOG for a tiny bit over €9. I highly recommend you try it. You can also get Dreamfall off GOG, but it's almost €14 and it's necessary for the series, but I'm gonna try and do a show about Dreamfall one day as well. Till then, play The Longest Journey. You will not regret it. You will, however, regret that you'll have to wait about 5 to 10 years for the actual sequel to it, like a direct sequel to The Longest Journey to come out. Turnquist has said that The Longest Journey Home may yet come, but it won't happen for a long time. Well, it's been 17 years. What's another 10 years? What's another 10 years for one of the best stories ever made in a video game? Well, that's about it. How strange to remember April Ryan. If you enjoyed this show, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Or, if you thought it was horrible, then share it with your enemies and make them suffer. We shall be your weapon of vengeance. But if you liked what you saw, you could, I don't know, maybe donate, because basically YouTube is horrible at revenue, by using the link in the description, or just buy my book. It's a fantasy book about, well, a lot of stuff. I guarantee it won't suck, and if it does suck, you can find me here and complain about it.